Hello, I'm Jay Nicoll of Nicoll Investigations, and I'm here to tell you about our next episode of Ontario Cold Cases, a podcast, coming this Sunday, March 10th, on the abduction and murder of Cindy Williams. July 26, 1974, 4-year-old Cindy Williams was playing on the swings in a Hamilton park around Fennel Avenue East and Upper Ottawa Street. Other kids in the park watched the little girl get abducted as she willingly climbed into a black Ford. She had earlier been seen speaking with the man in a black suit. Cops theorized he may have arranged to pick Cindy up later in the day, perhaps promising her a treat. On April 30th, 1975, a man discovered a shallow grave near Grover Road in Burlington. Remains are found along with the little girl's shorts and running shoes. The case remains unsolved. So please consider subscribing to Ontario Cold Cases, a podcast on Patreon, Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts. Hello, I'm Jay Nicoll from Nicoll Investigations, and I'm here to tell you about some of the upcoming episodes of Ontario Cold Cases, the podcast. Brenda Stinson, 23, of Peterborough, was found naked and beaten in the ditch on Sawyers Creek Road, south of Lakefield, May 12, 1984. The mother one last been seen earlier that day at the Trent Inn in Peterborough at 12:15 a.m. Brenda attended Kenner Collegiate Vocational Institute, but not finished. At the time of her death, she was living with her parents in Peterborough with her 5-year-old son, Johnny. Please consider subscribing to Ontario Cold Cases, a podcast on Patreon, Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts. Hello, I'm Jay Nicoll from Nicoll Investigations, and I'm here to tell you about some of the upcoming episodes of Ontario Cold Cases, the podcast. The body of a woman was located off of Laneway on the east side of Keele Street, north of the 15th Side Road in King Township. Investigation revealed that the victim was Diana Veronica Singh, age 21, resident of Toronto, being reported missing. Diana was last seen on Tuesday, August 13, 1974 at 9 p.m. at the Becker's Milk Store located at Jane Street and Woolner Avenue in Toronto. It is believed that Diana hitchhiked to the Becker's store, which she was last seen. She worked as a waitress at the time of her death and was reported to have been pregnant. An autopsy determined that Diana Singh died as a result of stab wounds. Please consider subscribing to Ontario Cold Cases, a podcast on Patreon, Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts. Hello, I'm Jay Nicoll from Nicoll Investigations, and I'm here to tell you about some of the upcoming episodes of Ontario Cold Cases, the podcast. On the evening of December 6, 1953, a bloody 19-year-old James Wilson arrived at the Scarborough Police Station, reported his 17-year-old girlfriend, Mary McDowell, being forcibly removed from his car by a masked bandit when they were parked in a secluded Lover's Lane. Wilson was immediately a suspect in this missing persons case, but police soon determined his head wounds could have not been self-inflicted, and the search was on for the amiable East York typist and the man who abducted her that night. No trace of Mary McDowell has ever been found. Please consider subscribing to Ontario Cold Cases, a podcast on Patreon, Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts. Hello, I'm Jay Nicoll from Nicoll Investigations, and I'm here to tell you about some of the upcoming episodes of Ontario Cold Cases, the podcast. Answers are hard to come by, especially in the case of Jackie English, the 15-year-old waitress at the Metropolitan store at the Treasure Island Mall on London's outskirts. She left work at the store's lunch counter about 10:30 p.m. on October 4th, 1969, was last seen alive getting into a maroon-colored car at the midpoint of the Wellington Road Bridge that spans the Highway 401. 5 days later, her naked, sexually assaulted body was found by duck hunters in Big Otter Creek near Tillsonburg. She was killed by a blow to the head. Please consider subscribing to Ontario Cold Cases, a podcast on Patreon, Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts.